of UX design?
Yes. Okay, we're ready.
You are ready. Okay, here we go. First of all, everyone, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you being here. It shows that you are, I hope that it shows that you are forward thinking, that you're ready to consider some new things, or that you are looking to reinforce what you already believe. In either case, I hope I'm able to provide that for you today. Just to give you a little bit of a introduction on myself, I am a full-time design consultant and a part-time manager for our IXD practice at Software Technology Group. And I really love both my jobs. They're terrific. My full-time gig right now is with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I am working with them to create, it's called Area Book Planner for the missionaries. It's how they keep track of all their people and their appointments and stuff. It is a wonderful product. And for Software Technology Group, I manage a team of we're about 12 IXDs right now, and also a team of a few leads that I have that help me with my projects. And I love my time at STG. I've been here now for about a year and 9 months. And STG has been terrific as far as opportunity, as far as support. I've really enjoyed my time here. Other than that, I've got about 16 years of experience. My background is graphic design, user interface design, marketing. Like a lot of UX people, we have a really, really motley kind of background. And you kind of get used to that after a while and figure out how to place the UX people with the right people. We're a little bit trickier to place because of that, because we have such a diverse background. But we still have a lot to offer. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So the presentation I'm about to show you is also a tour of all of my nerdy obsessions. I apologize for that, but you got to go with what you gravitate towards, what draws you emotionally. And one of those things that draws me emotionally is my nerdy obsession for Halloween costume design. I usually make all of my own costumes. Hey, Celestia. Thanks for coming. Kayla, I didn't say hi. How are you? Hello. See Brian. How you guys doing? Shane, what's up? All you other people in the house. Not that you're less important, but you are. Okay. Let's see. Here is my costume from several years ago. This is Pepe the Prawn. You know who that is? The Muppets?
Yeah.
It's from the Muppets? Yeah. There you go. I'm looking through eye holes in the mouth, and I could like control the mouth, make the mouth go bad. Is Pepe the Prawn okay? I don't know. Okay. This is, let me know if you recognize this guy. Anyone recognize him?
Cowbell.
Yeah, there you go. The more cowbell guy. That's right. This, I should point out, that is not my stomach. It is not, I promise it is not. That is, it's control top pantyhose. And I stuffed it with batting, and then I painted the outside to make it look like hair. It was super gross and really effective. Let's see. STG, you guys are familiar with this one. I bowled wearing this entire outfit. I bowled 2 frames wearing this entire outfit. And it was really hot, and I destroyed the costume, and it was so freaking worth it. And then let's see. You guys haven't seen this one either. This is my Vector costume. The launcher is a Nerf gun that I put a bunch of stuff on, and then it does launch a squid. If you go like this, I attached a ball to the butt of a stuffed octopus, and that's how I got it to work. So there you go. My point in telling you all of this is that UX designers are a little bit weird. We have like I said, a very diverse background, and we are ugly in the sense that we are like ugly ducklings. We're like ugly ducklings because just like the fairy tale creature, we are in our infancy. We still got a lot of growing up to do, but we have a lot of potential. And I think when we are all done growing up, are going to end up beautiful. So don't worry, you're not on the recording. So I'm good. Okay. And by the way, I'm very impressed. You must be good at limbo. Okay. So the field of user experience design, like I said, is still in its infancy. But like many nascent beings, we are continually defining and refining ourselves. Even in the throes of full-blown evolution, we are just as essential to modern-day enterprise as the internet. There is a really, really good example from Ed Catmull, wrote Creativity Incorporated. It's a book I'm listening to on audiobook right now. And I really like what he has to say about ideas. He is one of the founders of Pixar, got to mention. He said that ideas are like ugly babies, in that when you first get them, wow. He said that when they look at the reels for all these movies that you know and love, Monsters Incorporated, Inside Out, Up, all of these things are horrible when they're first pitched to what they call the brain trust, the higher ups at Pixar. Wow, this is awesome. We're getting a big group here. Anyway, they're horrible when they start out. However, the thing that's wonderful about the brain trust is that they can see the seeds of something powerful inside of those ideas. And so we should never discount something due to the fact that it is new and due to the fact that it has potential to grow, but it doesn't have that potential now. So my point in all that is this: just because it's ugly doesn't mean it's inessential. So the origins of this entire thing came up one day when I had I'm often shocked and dismayed at the fact that developers and managers and executives still fail to see the value of UX. A client of ours approached me once upon a time and he said to me, I understand the value of UX. However, my higher-ups don't understand the value of UX. Can you give me some ammo for pitching it to them? And this is what I said to him. I said, don't they know? This is the first time in my entire life that it didn't occur to me that everyone didn't know and love user experience design as much as I do. This revelation, of course, led me to several inquiries on my part, and sure enough, it turns out that many have yet to see the light of user focus. And I guess that's somewhat understandable. I'm not an accountant, so I don't know how those funny number thingies add up to making a company successful. I'm not a lawyer, so I've never experienced the thrill of dumping one company's coffers into another. I'm not a director of first impressions, so I don't know what the heck that is and what they do. I'll let that sink in for a minute there. I'm really glad that Abby isn't in here. I hope she doesn't find this offensive. Anyway, so that's fine. That's no problem. You don't know me, playa. So you don't know why you need me in the game. So allow me to explain. That's actually like a lot slower than the one that I found. It's like insane what he does to juke that guy out of his shorts. Okay. So allow me to explain by bringing up this analogy. More than the pointy end. In one of my favorite swashbuckler movies, The Mask of Zorro, raise your hand if you've seen The Mask of Zorro. Oh, good, most. Okay, awesome. So you're going to recognize this immediately. I love the relationship between Don de la Vega, the aging Zorro who wants to hand off his title to the upcoming Zorro, the young and the eager Alejandro. So they have a terrific relationship. He starts to tell him what his intentions are, that he wants to hand off the title to him. And Alejandro, without another word, just says, let's go then. And he grabs the sword and he pulls it out and he's ready to rumble. Now, fortunately, the wizened master is wise enough to ask him, you know how to use that thing? And this is what he says. He says, yes. The pointy end goes into the other man. Okay. Okay, hang on, let me catch up on my notes here. Oh, okay, here we go. In the war of commerce, it is much more tempting to focus on the pointy end rather than the tang, which is like, the part that you grip. When it comes right down to it, though, the sword is worthless without a steady hand to guide it home, right? The company's products are only the tip of the sword. You need the steady hand of user experience in order to guide the product to reach the end user in productive and meaningful ways. That is what the user experience designer is all about. I love this quote from Marcin Tretter. I use him a couple of times. Great summation here. User experience design is a strategy of product development and it should be present from the beginning, the very, very origins of a product. Focusing on the experience of your future users should lay at the heart of your approach to product development. There is no other way. So now, why is there no other way? Because the sweet spot for the UX designer is the interpretation and the execution of all of these extremely important things. Excuse me, pizza and Dr. Pepper. Business objectives, user requirements, branding considerations, marketing objectives, and more. I'm going to use and more a lot because it's really hard to define the amazing, wonderful, broad scope of things that user experience people do. So in short, everything that you need to make a product successful. All right, so here are 4 reasons now why UX designers are an absolute necessity in the product creation process. Reason number 1, UX designers are your only user advocates. If I have learned anything in my time as a UX person, even in my time as a graphic designer, it is this: you are not your user. And I love this cartoon. Hey, can everyone read that? You are not your user. Calvin here obviously thinks that, you know, since they need it, they want it. He has that incorrect. Companies always assume that they know exactly what the product needs to do in order to fulfill the user's wildest dreams. But you know what? They honestly have no clue. It's even tough for user experience people to get at what they really, really need. Now, why is there so much delusion? Because companies take so much ownership over their products. And because they take so much ownership, so much pride in their products, they assume that the users see the same intrinsic value that they see. But trust me, users see something completely different. They really do. Okay, so let me give you a great example of what I'm talking about here. Guess I could use that. There we go. This is a terrific example. Maybe not a terrific human being, I guess that's debatable, but it's a great example of how companies can really misfire on what they think their users want. So what had happened here, if you're a child of the 80s like I am, Coke came along and just, figuratively jumped out from behind a corner and scared us to death with this. They said Coke has a new flavor. What had happened is they were really, really afraid of their competition. Believe it or not, there was a day and an age where Pepsi was kicking Coke's butt, and that was the 80s. I don't know if it was the Michael Jackson commercials or whatever else, but for whatever reason, Pepsi was killing them. There was also all of these emerging diet brands like Tab that were really giving Coke a hard time. And so they panicked. And they said, well, maybe what we need to do is we need to make our product sweeter. That would make it a little bit more like Pepsi, and then we can move forward with getting our margins back. Well, I mean, if you know anything about what happened here, it was an absolute catastrophe. They lost tons of customers, some of them forever. And it is because they didn't understand what their customers really wanted. And what they wanted was the other things the Coke brand stands for, the classic, enduring, kind of legendary, iconic value of Coke. And the second that they tried to switch their flavor, holy cow, that really, really just flew in the face of everything that they thought they knew about their consumers. So what they did was they reintroduced their old brand by calling it, who remembers? Classic. Classic Coke. As in classic mistake, But actually, and that's even debatable because they brought back the Coke brand and it was much, much, much more successful than it was before. So people are saying, wow, okay, obviously the entire cycle there was part of their brilliant marketing strategy. I think that's debatable. I think it's because they didn't understand the consumer. Okay, so I keep jumping ahead of myself on the notes. I apologize. Companies carry too much bias towards their precious creations, and as a result, they don't ask enough and they don't ask the right questions. This leads to inevitable myopia and to products that come way too short of the mark. That's where the user experience designer comes in. They discover who your user really is, and they're trained to do that, and they understand how to bring their hopes and desires to bear regardless of corporate bias. They know how to, here's another nerdy reference, they know how to fight for the user. I'm sorry. You guys are probably learning more about me than you ever wanted to know. They know how to fight for the user. They know how to do that by asking the right questions. And then they continue to fight throughout the product development process. Now, this is one of the most important things that a user experience designer does. They build empathy for your consumer. Can you see that all right? I love that. It's so fun. If it makes me giggle, I usually just like, okay, I'm going to put that in the presentation. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it.
Is that one of your costumes?
No, it isn't. That's a good guess. I had one to look kind of like that. I did like I don't have a picture of it. You know the yup, yup, yup Martian from Sesame Street?
Yes.
I did that one year. I'll show you a picture sometime. Anyway, yeah. So UX designers build empathy for the user, which makes the entire product team more selfless. And selflessness is an incredibly productive mindset. Another great quote here from Aristotle. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. Companies are really, really good at educating their minds. They are not particularly good at educating the heart. That is where the user experience designer comes in. They understand how to address the emotions, how to address the feelings, not to get too touchy-feely, of the consumer. And they know how to bring those feelings to bear in product meetings. Okay. So, product teams that are empathetic come to see the product not only as an expression of business objectives, but as a tool for making a user's life better. User-first mentality always leads to improved products. And, you know, funny enough, this always tends to lead to a stronger quarterly statement. Okay, again, quoting from Marson Tretter here. User experience is always present. It's not something you can skip now and do later. User experience is present whether you design for it or not. And if you don't take care of it, it will just get out of control. I would hope that if you don't remember anything else today, that you remember that quote. User experience is present whether you design for it or not. So you might as well take care of it. Okay. Number 2, UX designers are problem solvers and relationship builders. Okay. Let me tell you something that would be really, really funny for you to do if those of you who know a UX designer and are working with them, walk up to them, bold face, and say to them, can you do me a favor? Can you just make it pretty? It is such a quick and easy way to get our blood boiling. And I'll tell you why. It's because it really, really, well, UX designers go a lot farther than just making things pretty. We bring specific, real-world solutions to very, very difficult business problems. So we use things like, websites, applications, copy, emails, any touch point that we have with your consumers as a way to solve your problems and as a way to solve their problems. We do this by focusing on, oh, I already talked about that. A UX designer builds bridges, okay? They build the bridge, of course, between the company and the consumer. The bridge itself is the UXer. And yes, that is my term. And I'm totally going to patent it. It's going to blow up the world. Yes, we are the ones who build the bridges. And the way that we build those bridges is by building relationships. We make amazing relationships not only between the company and the consumer, but we also focus on relationships within your company. Okay, here's some of the people that we do that with. So we sit down and we're generally very, very congenial people. We're usually pretty fun to talk to. Not always, we can be opinionated, but we're usually fun to talk to. And that is because we have so much experience working with so many different kinds of people. We work with stakeholders, users, product managers, marketing teams, developers, and more. There it is again. Because we work well with people, we understand everyone's needs. And because we understand everyone's needs, we know how to bring those needs to bear. We know how to create mashups. So we take everyone's thoughts, everyone's objectives, everyone's needs, we prioritize, we eliminate where necessary, we append where necessary, until we come up with that perfect sweet spot, the perfect mashup of everyone's objectives. Now, I couldn't pick between the two mashup images that I found here. So we've got a Mario, Zelda, Metroid mashup. I mean, it looks terrible, but wouldn't that be cool? Oh my gosh, I would so play a video game that had that character. And then the other terrific mashup, of course, is Calvin and Hobbes and Star Wars. So talking about that ideal sweet spot mashup, that is what the UX designer does for you. Do you need a masher-upper in a business? Heck yeah. Sorry, I keep hitting the wrong button. Excuse me. Okay, yeah, there it is. Without proper coordination of all these objectives and all of these people and all these things that are going on, objectives kind of compete for room at the top. It creates sort of this amorphous mess of these competing priorities. And this, of course, wastes endless time and money. As you know, companies gut the product again and again and again and again. I'm sure many of you have experienced that, seeking to get that perfect balance. User experience designers help you to go forward with that perfect balance in mind right from the get-go. And it's never a perfect process. I don't think anything creative was ever intended to be, but user experience designers help you to get to that place and create effective mashups. Number 3. UX designers bring a fresh, highly trained perspective. I love this quote from Henry Ford. He said, if I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. He looked at there's another wonderful quote that's used a lot in user experience design. And I'm going to forget who it's by. But anyway, the quote is, if any of you know it, like Celestia, I don't know if you know this one. People don't want a 1/4-inch drill bit. People want 1/4-inch holes. So the user experience designer is the one who gets at what not just what the user says he or she needs, but what they really need. We get into these crazy, crazy places, very, very creative places, where we get beyond just looking for the faster horse to what everyone really, really needs, that mashup that we talked about. Let's see. Yes. So it's amazing how customers and companies kind of fail to see the forest for the trees, how often that happens. Ed Catmull, again, this is the founder of Pixar. We referenced him earlier. I love what he says about this. So he's talking more here about just the creative process and about working on a project. In order to create, you must internalize and almost become the project for a while. And that near fusing with the project is an essential part of its emergence. But it is also confusing, where once you could see a forest, now there are only trees. And I'm sure you've experienced this in any line of work you've been in, especially if you've been on one particular project for a while. You get fused with it. It's hard to take that long view once again because you're so caught up in the details. There are some times when I'll even literally stand up, walk away from my screen, and look at it from about 5 or 6 feet away, just because it helps me to see something that I haven't been looking for before. This is something that UX designers do for teams. They help them to stand back and take that long view to see the forest for the trees again. Ed Catmull kind of describes how they overcome this particular barrier in Creativity Incorporated. He says that what they do is, he knows that these directors are so entrenched in their products that they need to have other people start to look at it. They call it their brain trust. I've referenced it once. It is sort of like all of Pixar's founders and the executives, previous directors, writers, producers, all these amazing, smart, wonderful people with tons of experience who take a look at this product, this reel, they call it, like an early version of the film, and just rip it to shreds. I mean, they're very, very blunt about it, but they are always focused on the issue, always focused on making it better, and always recognizing that that reel could become something very, very special. So the brain trust sees the potential and knows how to bring it to greater fruition, knows how to flesh it out. And that's really, really similar to what UX designers do for product teams. Okay. So both companies and customers need someone who can step way, way back. They can and offer the long view that they haven't fathomed. And to do that, you need a freak. That is the best freak image I've ever seen in my entire life. Sorry, Nicolas Cage, we love you, boo. Okay. UX designers have freakishly diverse backgrounds. I think that's what makes us so freaky. You'll never find two UX designers that are the same, although we share a lot of common skills. We are branding gurus, we are information architects, we're prototype experts, graphic designers, product planners, coders, and a whole lot more. Get used to it, you're gonna keep hearing it. All in one. And this this multidisciplinary grounding helps us to see products differently. This unique view helps us to approach product development in innovative, eye-opening ways. We can iterate, coming up with crazy, unheard of solutions every time. The result is products that stand out in all of the right ways. Surviving in today's ultra-competitive economy requires exactly that, standing out in all the right ways. I think that this is actually a really great example here, if you've seen the Lego movie. This is a guy, Emmett, who came into this team of these supposed experts, the master builders, as someone who was uncommonly not a master, you know. But because he was unlike them, because he didn't think a thing like them, he came up with all these crazy solutions. Like, for example, their wheel came off and they needed to keep their vehicle moving, and so he attached the wheel to his head, and his head's going, you know. No one else would have thought of that except for him. I like to think that we're a little less boring than Emmett, but other than that, I think it's a pretty good analogy. Okay, number 4. UX designers are directly tied to bottom lines. In case you kind of missed like the underlying current and everything that we've talked about so far, UX designers are really, really good at saving and making money for companies. How do they save money? Oh, excuse me, I forgot to show you this is what they do for companies. Okay. How do they do this? I think Frank Lloyd Wright says it really, really well. I love this quote. I use it all the time. You can use an eraser on the drafting table or a sledgehammer on the construction site. And those of you who are familiar with the design process know that as soon as it gets into development, it really is the equivalent of starting to take a sledgehammer to code when it gets to that point. And obviously, that's still going to happen no matter what, right? What the UX designer does, though, is they help to ameliorate some of that effect. So far too often in today's businesses, in their products, there's this representation of this ready, fire, aim mentality. You know, product creators push and push for a minimum viable product that meets deadlines, and then they realize to their horror that their users are retching on the monkey poop that they've created. They quickly scramble to clean up the mess, but the monkey's already done his business. And this, of course, is a massive waste of time and money, but it's too late. The business is already done. That's the most creepy monkey I've ever seen in my entire life. Okay, so an early investment in user experience saves companies money in terms of just endless, rethinks, rewrites, and recalculations. UXers accomplish this by creating viable, actionable product strategies, stripping unnecessary product features, clarifying product direction, decreasing development time, and they do this because Oh, there's so many great tools out there now that we use for handing off to developers and communicating with them. And you guess it, a whole lot more. Maybe that's what I should have you remember, like if you don't remember anything else. We offer a whole lot more. Okay. Just one more thing to back up this point. This is Ralph Speth. He's the current CEO of Jaguar Land Rover. He said, if you think good design is expensive, you should look at the cost of bad design. And I'm sure that any of you have had anything to do with a product understand exactly what he's talking about here. So UX designers make money for companies by making products that their customers love. Nothing is more meaningful for financial growth, I think we can all agree, than a devoted, engaged super fan base. I think that the NFL provides some amazing, amazing examples of some super fans here. I'm a Raiders fan. I know you wouldn't think it by looking at me, but I'm totally Raider Nation. I love those guys. I think that these guys are actually a fantastic example of building a super, super loyal fan base. And as a matter of fact, I look at it at their level of devotion being that almost like, I don't know, going to a church. I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of similarities. They go on Sunday. It's a really, really nice building. They get all dressed up. They talk about it a lot during the week. It follows their every thought. They are devoted to their teams, man. And I think that's good and bad. But anyway, that's not what we're here to analyze. I think what's important here is the example. The NFL has built this amazing relationship with their customers by offering them a product that they really love. For me, sports, especially football, is all about the drama. And it's all about the excitement of this incredible athleticism and the possibility that anyone can get their knee absolutely shattered at any second. And all of these incredible things that are happening at 100 miles an hour. And to the point that the Super Bowl has become the greatest form of Sunday worship that we have for the entire year. I mean, it's really sad, but it's true. And I think that is exactly the kind of thing that UX designers can build for companies. We go beyond just creating a product that is useful to creating a product that your consumers can have an emotional connection with. Something that goes beyond just something, okay, well, I'm going to use this to accomplish a task, to this is something I'm going to tell my friends about. And this is something that I'm going to love using for many years to come. That's where UX designers get you. Okay. So I believe I belabored the point sufficiently. Or have I? Wait, okay, sorry. I had to show you this image here. This is a real super fan. Look how excited he is to win. Isn't that great? Yay! He's a super fan of himself. I won. Okay. Case and proof. So in case you're one of those seeing as believing types, I just wanted to show you a couple of case studies before we close. This is Web Credible's work for Dulux. Web Credible is a London-based UX agency. Dulux is a paint manufacturer. They came to him with a challenge. They had just a major lack of consumer confidence in their color. So I'd imagine that many of you have experienced the same thing. You want to paint your house, and you're not sure exactly what the colors are going to look like. And so what do? We buy tester paints, right? Dulux was having a really, really hard time moving their tester paints and thus getting people to try the product and thus to build a relationship with the product. So that's the challenge. Excuse me. There we go. So the goals were to make customers want to redecorate, to increase the sales of their tester paints, and to grow the number of app users. And for that, of course, they needed to build an app. So here's just a couple of small examples of some of the outputs of UX designers. If you've never seen the kind of work that we do everything from the final product to helping with business requirements to helping to develop user personas and all of these other wonderful little things that lead up to product creation. These two particular examples, this is a wireframe. You can even see it kind of looks like a Post-it note on top of their augmented reality feature, which is you can go into an environment and you can start to look at walls and you can pan around and you can try different colors on different walls, all in a virtual environment. And so they had to visualize that, and that's what that's all about. This other thing here, this is it's a storyboard for a video that they use to explain how the whole augmented reality feature works. Here is some of what, oh, excuse me, first, here is the a couple of screenshots of the final product. As you can see, it's a responsive thing. We'll talk about that with the next product here as well. So you can look at it on a mobile, you can look at it on a tablet, and you can kind of go around and you can pick these walls and you can start to put colors on them. Really cool little product. Anyway, because of all of the work that they did for them, these are the final results. There was a 65% increase in tester paint sales. There was a 92% increase in stockist searches, so like, you know, the retailers that stock the products. And there were 5 million downloads globally. I don't know what range that was, but anyway, that's a lot of downloads. So that's our first example. Second example is Slice of Lime, which is an American user experience firm. They were approached with a product called Sphero. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of Sphero. You know Sphero? Okay, a few of you. It is sort of it's a ball, but it's also a robotic kind of device. Do all kinds of cool things. The difficulty with this is it's just a sphere. And their challenge was to explain a really hard to explain kind of product to people very, very quickly. The other challenge that they had is that they have a platform for a whole bunch of games that developers had made using Sphero. And it's really difficult to get a new consumer base used to using those games. So these are the challenges they had to overcome. Wait, one more. They also had some admins who wanted to be able to use something to be able to very easily, like their salespeople, to very easily create templates with the Sphero product in it so that they could show how awesome it is. So the challenge that they had is it's hard to explain, and they got this game on top of everything, and they had a whole new admin system. The goals for all of this, though, is they wanted to streamline the CMS for the admins. They wanted to make the copy and everything else on the site a lot more personable so they could start to develop that emotional relationship we've talked about. They wanted engaging images and videos. They wanted much simpler navigation. So in other words, what they needed was a complete site redesign. And not only that, but a responsive site redesign. Here's an example of one of their outputs. These are wireframes, and you can see they're playing with a wireframe is a very, very basic structural version of the product where they're just playing with layout, they're playing with images, and this really helps you to hone in on the strategy that you're going to be using for any particular screen. How you're going to move iFlow, how you're going to get people to click through, where you're going to place your most important elements. That's what things like this are all about. So here is one of the other important things that came up with. There is the responsive site. You can see that, you know, using a single code base, they have something that is using media queries, all sorts of great things in CSS. They're able to make it an optimized experience no matter what screen you're on. And that way, you know, no matter who comes to the site, no matter what kind of updates you need to make, it's all going to be a lot simpler. This is some of the admin templates that they were able to create. Very cool stuff. So, and again, this is something that's intended to be incredibly simple for someone to get into a back end and to be able to put in their own content and their own images. The UX people helped with all this. Here is some of their outputs. 127% increase in page views. Users staying on the site about 38% longer. And the overall bounce rate is when you come, you look at one page, and then you leave. They decreased that by 17%. My final quote. This is Elliot Noyes. He's a legendary designer for IBM. Said, "Good design is good business." So, yes, in conclusion, we are very, very ugly, but man, oh man, do you need us. Any questions for me? What questions do you have? Yes?
So, or maybe talk through, I don't know if it's as much as a question, but some clients they work with, they have people that are very visual and not technical.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can be expensive to start putting things that they can see. Explain how UX kind of helps people who are visual catch the vision and get their input before kind of that eraser versus a sledgehammer, and what tools are used that anyone could really pick those up. But what tools do you guys use to do that, to speed it up?
Well, as far as what we do to help visualize, I mean, you've seen some of the outputs there. Wireframing is probably one of our most common tools. I love it because you can move elements around quickly. You can put them on a whiteboard. It can be everything from a sketch to something more polished, which is what they did. Common whiteboarding tools would be whiteboards. I do that a ton. Balsamic is a really popular one. Illustrator, Keynote. Believe it or not, we do a ton of stuff in Keynote. Keynote is terrific for the next step, which I think is the most valuable step for UX visualization, and that is prototyping. Holy cow. So you're building like just this really sometimes basic, sometimes more high comp, more high fidelity, fleshed out version of the product, and you use a tool like InVision, Axure Pro, there's Macaw, there's some other things. Keynote is another terrific prototyping tool, believe it or not. And you use those things to be able to show someone a really basic or even a really fleshed out version of the actual product. There are some times when I've been looking at prototypes and I forget that I'm not supposed to be looking at the actual product. There's some really cool things you can do out there for that. So I'd say wireframing and prototyping are probably the best ways that we help to visualize things for our people. A really great tool for helping our developers to catch the vision of what we're doing and to get down to specs. There's a plugin for Sketch, which is a vector manipulation tool like Illustrator, called Zeppelin. And I use that all the time. It's such a great way to be able to hand things off to developers. Get them to see it, and then also to be able to get closer and see the spacing and the colors and the classes. So, good question. Other questions? Yes?
So what kind of tangible skill sets do you look for in a UX designer? Because you mentioned how diverse you guys are. And I think like a front-end person who's HTML, CSS, JavaScript, those are very tangible skill sets.
Yeah.
And I think more visual people like, oh, definitely your Adobe products are good for that.
Mm-hmm.
For a UX designer in particular, what are you looking for? Maybe some of those products that you mentioned for sure. In addition to that. Yeah,
I think you hit the nail on the head. We're very, very difficult to boil down to specific skill sets. I mean, like for me, for example, I can tell you I'm very, very solid with the Adobe Creative Suite, and I'm, very well versed in InVision and all these different tools, right? But for designers, and especially UX designers, it goes so far beyond the technical skills of the profession, including, a lot of us are really solid in coding. However, I think for UX designers, you really, really want to seek to get at those soft skills. You want to see how good they are at conducting user research and how much experience they have with that. I mean, to be able to represent the voice of the user, you need to be able to understand what the user's voice is. And that is accomplished through user research. Really good heuristic evaluations, especially. You want to get someone who is really solid at working with stakeholders, who can work through super difficult dilemmas where you've got the users clamoring for one thing and you've got the stakeholders clamoring for another. How do you find that intersection? You need good compromisers, And then, of course, you need someone who is insanely visual, who really, really understands user interface principles. A really good way to get at that, like I did a lot of marketing experiments, their little 2 or 3 day courses. Those helped me a ton. You need to look for someone who's constantly, continually learning the usability principles so that they can make the correct assumptions for when they're approaching your actual user base. I don't know, does that help at all?
Yeah, thank you.
I guess long story short, the answer is it's super hard to peg down a really good UX designer because it's hard to define skills that you're looking for. Since you are looking for a masher-upper, a freak, all of these different things that we talked about, it's time to think outside the box to things beyond just what they can easily put on a resume. Yes?
Do you ever have clients that will kind of not ask the customers, but you just have a UX designer that's kind of heading it.
So you mean like heading the project development team, or
Heading the design of your product?
It's a good question. I've seen a lot of different structures. I don't know if this is addressing exactly what you're looking for, but in my particular instance where I am now, I have a, probably the one who's calling all of the shots as a product manager. That would sort of be like a next level kind of UX designer. It kind of goes UX designer, senior UX designer, and then a product manager. Sometimes the product manager hands off a lot of his responsibilities to someone like in Celestia's. Are you BA or are you PMO? I keep forgetting. BA. Okay. So to a PMO kind of person. So a project manager who would actually oversee your work. For me in particular, I do most of my work with a project manager, and then about once a week I'll check in with our product head, with our product developer.
So if you didn't necessarily want to bother or ask all your customers for what they're looking for, how would you go about then further developing your product?
So you're talking about making the best way to make assumptions without involving the users?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'd say do everything you can to involve the users. I get what you're saying, though, because even in my instance, it's...
Because they already have work. They're already...
Yeah. In my instance, we've got an MVP. We've got to get out there. Let's get it out there as fast as we can. Let's make some assumptions, and we can test it after we've released the product. That's a really common scenario. Celestia, did you have something to say?
Yeah, so one of the clients that I worked for when I was in there as a VA UX designer, the client wanted me to design an app for them, and they wanted something different, and they brought me in and said, okay, they had a web-based software system that they were using, but they wanted an app specifically built, but for multiple reasons. But anyway, but they said, we're not really too fond of the way that our software application looks, so just build us an app and go figure out how it. But there were no boot swatches, there was nothing, there's like, go figure it out. You go figure out how to make it work. So I did talk with some of the users, like of the users who would be using it, who they had that I had available to me. But overall, it was a huge global user base, so to reach out to all those people. And so what they did, they paid me for 2 weeks to just go and do industry research. What are the other apps that are out there? What are other people doing that are similar? What I was doing was an app for the Air Force for walking EPA standards. So I had to learn all about engines and EPA regulations to add those in there. But just looking around and doing market research. And so not all clients will let you do that, but often if it's a client where they don't know what they want yet, they want you to tell them what to do or give them suggestions. A lot of it comes down to just doing that market research, going out there, figuring out what other people are doing, coming up with different ideas, talking to any users that you can get your hands on, and then coming up with multiple ideas and saying, well, here are some different things. And usually going with like one thing for me, like this is what I think we should do, but then a couple other alternate views of that, so that the client can say, oh yeah, this is the way we were going, and then saying, okay, that's the path. But it is definitely much more difficult when they don't have anything for you, and there's not a team there saying, well, we really need it to look like this, and we really want it for it to go. When they just say, just go make it look pretty.
Yeah, make it pretty.
Make it work. I want it to look cool.
You cut me real deep, just
really at the end of the day, it's a mechanic working on an engine in the basement of an Air Force base, so like it doesn't have to look super cool. So I kind of lucked out in that part. I didn't have to go crazy with my design, but yeah. So that's an example of a client where they just said, just go do it, and I just had to go figure it out. So
another like really good resource, if you're not going to tap directly into your users. I mean, I think one of the best in-house UX designers you will find who doesn't have the title are developers. Holy cow! I mean, they are amazing at doing sanity checks on your work. Why on earth did you do it this way? Oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, I've been humbled by developers so many times, and it's been such an educational experience. They provide a great sanity check. Obviously, you're going to want to check in with your stakeholder a lot. your project managers. We have a terrific project manager that's taking care of us right now. So often what I will do, like what I did today, would be just, hey, Darren, would you mind coming over? And he's my project manager. Take a look at these wireframes that I have up on the board. Does this make sense to you at all? Well, how do you think that this would make more sense if a user was to actually use this? You know, those kind of things really help. Does that answer your question at all? Okay. Cool. A few more minutes. Any other questions?
So you can't make it look pretty?
I'll tell you what, man. You give me all of your objectives and all of your desires and all your hopes and dreams. I'll mash them together, and somehow it's going to end up looking pretty anyway. How about that? Cool. All right. Good question, Brian. Throw me the curveballs all the time. Right?
It was Theodore that said that.
That was the guy? Okay, cool.
He's the Harvard marketing professor.
Man, it's one of my favorite quotes. I knew it was going to come up. I should have just thrown it in there. Anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, I mean, feel free to come up and talk to me afterwards. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. It was just a genuine treat to be able to prepare on this subject. So thank you very much. And get pizza on your way up.